Well, it's a day 2 of working on this thing, and I thought it was the video amp block over here, but something I forgot to do yesterday was to adjust these cutoffs. I turned the blue all the way down and turned the red and green all the way up, and you actually get something if you bring the red gain all the way up. You'll get red finally and blue, but I can get it on camera, but you can see the red here. But it's just I think actually these drive amplifiers are very weak, or they're not getting proper voltage for some reason. I don't know yet. The blue is just out of control though. The blue is, if I turn the blue all the way off, I still get blue. Let's see. If I turn the brightness off, we can get rid of some of the blue. Something to think about. Turn the contrast up, we get more contrast. But the blue is just, like, I have the blue cut off, shut all the way down, and the blue gain all the way off, and I still get blue. I shouldn't get any blue, but I don't know, the output on the color amplifiers could be really weak. Of course, I didn't bring my multimeter with me, so now I don't know. So I think what I'll do is just go ahead and do another shotgun and replace the green and red amps. See if that does anything. Although the blue, because the blue is being overdriven. It's just totally overdriven, the blue. And this was the old amp in here. Recapped the video amp too. Reflowed all the solder joints on it. Reflowed all the solder joints on the neck board. Just have to learn where to look. This is the second time I've ever had to deal with something like this. I'm going to set these all back to middle. And the popping is the anode because it's dirty. See, if you set it back to center, then even the contrast. See, that's interesting because if you bring the contrast up, you get colors, but that's with the red and green cutoff set all the way up. can see if you turn the blue all the way up, you get a blue screen, which is expected. Set these back to the center. I checked these pots for the cutoffs and they seem okay. Yeah. Even if you turn the input off, you get all blue. So. If I bring the video input up, then I get colors. But yeah, I don't know yet. Okay, so now I have my multimeter with me. And I got everything even and leveled. The gains, the cutoffs, everything's at the midpoint. But if we come in here and we look on the back of this neck board, I'm pretty sure Q321 is bad. And the way I determine that is that both of these inputs, red and, well, one of these two is red and green. The blue is outputting less voltage than the other two colors, but the input voltage is the same. So if we come in here and check the base of this guy, blue, this is Q321. So we check the base here. Q321, we get 2 volts, which is what all the others get. And if we check the center pin, the output here, I mean, not look through the camera while I do this. Yeah, this one, we get 4 volts. But if we compare that to the others, here we get 11 volts, and it's like that on both of them. 11 to 12 volts. I think I was getting roughly 12 volts before. So the same with this one. If I check that, 11.54. But for the blue, let's see, for the blue, we only get 4 volts. And if I recall, it's the inverse, so the higher the voltage or something, I don't remember, but it's definitely not good that that's lower than the others. Because your input, your colors come up, they come in, they go through this resistor, the voltage of that color comes into the base and goes through this transistor. And then goes to the drive transistor to drive the color, and this one is low, so good thing I brought my multimeter this time. So yeah, I'll go ahead and replace that transistor with one I have from a parts board and see if that makes any difference at all. Okay, so I think I just found the issue with this transistor, and it's not the transistor that I thought. I originally said Q321. It's actually not Q321. I think what I was reading, and I was concerned maybe this is something that happened, and it was, is that I am just measuring a voltage drop as a result of something else happening on that transistor. So the transistor is not actually bad. because I tested it. I pulled it out of circuit and tested it. But the Q323, which I thought I tested, is definitely bad. It's got a short on it. I don't know how I missed that. So I checked this on Diode Check, and it does not match up at all with the voltage bias compared to the rest of these transistors of the similar kinds that were on there. And in fact, if we take this meter and put it in continuity mode, I don't know how I'm going to do this one-handed, but it definitely shorts. Let's see if we can. Yeah, right there. It's definitely shorted, and none of the other transistors do that. And then if I test it in Diode Check, it does the same thing. So I'm gonna just pull this transistor and replace it instead of replacing this one. Also another thing that I did is I went ahead and replaced one of these neon bulbs, because the one that was in there looked completely roasted. Not quite sure what that is responsible for, but there's like a fracture in the glass. I don't know if I can make that show up. Yeah. So I don't know if that's compromised at all, but it looked compromised and it looked burned out, so I went ahead and replaced it. Yeah, I think if we replace this transistor, which one was it? Q323, which is, where is it? Right there. Q323. If we replace that, I bet this is going to start working, because this is the blue drive output, and the voltage on it is very low right now compared to all the rest of these. Okay, so let's give this another try here. I'm pretty sure it's gonna work now. Everything's gonna be out of whack or something, probably. So we don't get a solid blue on the screen anymore. That's good. Let me turn up the screen voltage a little. Let's see. There we go. Oh yes. Let's see. Oh yes. Oh yes. Let me tune the colors up, and I'll start again. All right, well, there we go. One transistor, boy. One transistor. So what was happening was that transistor was shorted, and because it was shorted, it was pulling the voltage down to the drive transistor. And when the voltage for the drive transistor is pulled down, it's biasing the cathode and increasing the output. So the output was so high coming off the blue transistor that it was blowing everything else out of the water. And on top of that, I had to bring the screen voltage up a lot more because the screen voltage was too low. And that's why it was harder to see the other colors. But if you increase the screen voltage with the blue drive so high, the whole screen turns blue. So it's a combination of things. he may have to readjust for his monitor. I didn't do any geometry adjustments because all that's going to be different. And then I have his the original cutoffs marked where they were at, but he's probably going to have to readjust all that. Anyways, yeah, that's fixed, and we have contrast, we have brightness. I'm gonna have to test this with the JAMA board over there too, because and when you turn the input off, the screen isn't completely blue anymore. So let me change this to, let's see, switch 3 is off and switch 1 is on. Or wait, no, switch 3 is off and switch 2 is on. So that'll give us our 15 kilohertz raw RGB input. And I just need to reconnect it on this harness. So this here is the RGB and this is the power and DMAG from the Blast City. So if we plug this in real quick, we'll give it another test. So now let's test it with this Neo Geo here. So we're not running it off the monitor tester anymore. See how good that looks. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you know, as most things are, when you're dealing with raw RGB, sometimes things need to be readjusted. Let's see. Let's bring the brightness and the contrast up. I think the screen could be bumped just a little bit more. Just a hair. And then turn the brightness down a little. That may be too high. We'll see. Oh yeah. Now the blue, the colors are going to show way differently on video than they are right now. See, that's, well, that doesn't even look like what I'm looking at. But this looks very nice. Yeah, my phone's blowing the colors out. Let's see if we can put it in test mode. There we go. Yeah. Yep. It's hard to see. This is pure white. But yeah, it's working now. Just one transistor. So I'll be sending this back to this guy and he can get it running again. So I just wanted to recap actually super quick what else I actually did here. The video amp block was reflowed completely. recapped. The neck board was completely reflowed. The color transistors were for red and green were replaced, and that one transistor for the blue drive transistor was replaced. Yeah, there were some other things like testing things, but I don't know how I missed that one transistor, but you know, it's how it goes sometimes. But this thing has a very nice picture to it. There's no shutdown anymore. The high voltage is stable. The B plus was brought back up to 180, but we'll have to reevaluate that after a recap, but I assume it would be the same. Pots are all okay. This was my remote board. I don't have his, but it should be fine. So yeah, I think I'm gonna call that one a close. I mean, even adjusting the video, everything's working fine. So we'll get this ready and packed up and sent back to him.